Once upon a time, in the peaceful neighborhood of 𝗵𝗂𝗯 city, there lived two married couples. The area was quiet, far from the noise of the main city. These couples lived in small rented rooms, and their doors were directly opposite each other. Every morning as the sun began to rise, the two wives, 𝗬 and 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿, would open their doors and greet each other with warm smiles. Their homes were so close that they didn't even have to step outside to see one another. 𝗬 and 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿 were the best of friends, their bond having bloomed long before they got married. Now, they found themselves living as neighbors. It seemed like destiny had a hand in bringing them together. 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿 gave birth first to her first child, a beautiful baby girl, and joy filled her home. The little one was cherished by both parents and became the center of their world. As the years went by, 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿 welcomed 3 more children into their family, each one bringing more happiness and laughter. Her days were now filled with the sounds of little giggles and the playful chaos of a bustling family. Meanwhile, 𝗬 watched with a mixture of joy and longing. She was thrilled for her friend but couldn't help but feel a little sadness. While 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿 was blessed with children, 𝗬 remained childless. She had always dreamed of being a mother, but so far, that dream hadn't come true. The happiness in 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿's life was a constant reminder of what 𝗬 deeply desired. As time passed, the close friendship between 𝗬 and 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿 began to change. The two had once spent hours together, sharing stories and dreams. Now, 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿 was often preoccupied, juggling the demands of motherhood and managing a growing household. She had little time to spare for her friend, and 𝗬 felt the distance between them. As time went on, 𝗬 found herself struggling with feelings of jealousy. It was hard for her to watch 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿's life, full of children and joy, while she remained childless. Each time she heard the laughter of 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿's children from across the way, it deepened the ache in her heart. At first, 𝗬 tried to push her feelings aside. She knew she should be happy for 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿, but the bitterness inside her grew every day. 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿, on the other hand, began to sense the change in their friendship. She noticed how 𝗬 no longer dropped by like she used to, and whenever they saw each other, there was an uncomfortable silence between them. 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿 thought about it one afternoon as she rocked her youngest to sleep. "It's like 𝗬 is keeping a distance from me," she wondered to herself. One day, as 𝗬 was sweeping the front of her home, she noticed 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿's husband, 𝗬𝐵𝐴, walking down the path with a beautiful white bundle in his arms. Curious, she watched as he approached their door and handed it to 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿, who received it with pure joy. 𝗬's heart sank as she saw the excitement on her friend's face as she opened the gift to reveal a gorgeous piece of fabric. It was a vibrant, multicolored wrapper, the kind that 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿 had always admired. 𝗬's heart swelled with jealousy. Why can't my husband, 𝗵𝐸, do something like that for me, she wondered. That evening when 𝗵𝐸 returned home from his workshop, 𝗬 couldn't hold back her feelings any longer. As he walked in, she confronted him, her voice tinged with frustration. 𝗵𝐸, why can't you buy me wrappers like 𝗬𝐵𝐴 buys for 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿? Look at how he makes her so happy, she said, trying to keep her tone calm. 𝗵𝐸 sighed, looking away after a long day of work. Why are you bothering me, 𝗬? You know I'm doing my best, he replied, his voice flat. Besides, you didn't give me any children. You expect me to buy gifts like 𝗬𝐵𝐴 does for 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿? 𝗬 felt her face flush with anger and hurt. That's not fair, 𝗵𝐸. Just because I don't have children doesn't mean I don't deserve to be treated with love. Listen, 𝗬, 𝗵𝐸 said, shaking his head. People are calling him Papa 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿 now, forgetting his name. But what do they call me? They call me 𝗵𝐸, the man with no children. Do you think I want to hear that? I don't need any more reminders of what we don't have. So please, let me be and go make my food. 𝗬's heart ached as she heard his words. It was painful to hear him refer to their situation so bluntly. She felt alone and frustrated, and now his words made her feel even smaller. One day, while 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿 was washing clothes, the sun shone brightly in the sky, and she felt a sense of satisfaction as she scrubbed away the dirt. After finishing the laundry, she spread the clothes outside, enjoying the fresh air. With the clothes fluttering in the breeze, she decided to take her children to the clinic for their vaccinations. However, as she arrived at the clinic, dark clouds began to gather overhead. 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿 hurried to take care of her children, hoping the rain would hold off until she returned home. Unfortunately, by the time she left the clinic, the sky had opened up, and heavy rain poured down. 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿 rushed home, but it was too late. The rain had soaked her children's clothes and her husband's clothes that she had hung outside. Feeling frustrated and overwhelmed, 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿 remembered that she had asked 𝐿 to help her remove the clothes if it started to rain. 𝐿 was supposed to be there for me, she thought. When she finally got home and saw the wet clothes still hanging outside, her anger boiled over. Without thinking twice, 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿 marched over to 𝐿's house. She knocked furiously on the door, and when 𝐿 opened it, her expression was a mix of surprise and confusion. 𝐿! 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿 exclaimed, unable to hide her frustration. I asked you to help me. I told you to take in the clothes if it started to rain, but you didn't do anything. 𝐿 crossed her arms, a defensive look on her face. Was I the one who told you to spread your clothes outside? You should have known better than to leave them out in the open. It's not my fault it rained. 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿 felt a rush of hurt as 𝐿's words hit her. It was as if her friend was dismissing her concerns entirely. You used to be my friend, 𝐿. I thought you would help me when I needed it, 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿 said, her voice rising. But 𝐿's reply was cold. Friend? I don't see one. I'm not responsible for your decisions. If you wanted to keep your clothes safe, you should have thought ahead, she replied sharply. In that moment, a heavy silence hung between them. 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿's heart sank as she realized the depth of the change in their relationship. It was clear that 𝐿 no longer cared for her the way she used to. The bond that had once connected them felt frayed and broken. Years passed, and the silence between 𝐿 and 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿 deepened. They both continued to keep their distance, each woman nursing her hurt and pride. Despite the rift in their friendship, their husbands, 𝗬𝐚𝐬𝐿 and 𝗬𝐵𝐵𝐻, exchanged small talks whenever they crossed paths, but their conversations were always superficial, lacking the warmth and depth that true friendship brings. 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿 had 5 children now, each one a bundle of joy. As they grew, they filled the compound with laughter, their voices rising out as they played games. They loved playing tag, hide and seek, and all sorts of games that kept them active and entertained. The sight of them playing brought a smile to 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿's face, even on the most tiring days. She cherished their laughter, a sound that echoed through her home and reminded her of the joys of motherhood. Meanwhile, 𝐿 watched from her home, torn between happiness for 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿 and the familiar ache of jealousy that had lingered over the years. The sight of the children playing brought back memories of the life she had once dreamed of, a life filled with the laughter of her own children. It was a bitter feeling to witness the joy that 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿 experienced every day. The children often gathered outside, making a joyful noise as they played in the compound. They would chase each other, their laughter mingling with the sound of their tiny feet pattering against the ground. 𝐿 could hear the laughter from her door, and it served as a constant reminder of what she had missed out on. Despite the growing distance as neighbors, the silence between the two women remained. 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿 had always been a diligent mother, trying her best to instill good habits in her children. One of her frequent reminders was to keep their slippers inside at night. You must remember to bring your slippers inside before it gets dark, she would tell them. I don't want to find them outside in the morning, as something bad might happen to them. Her children, however, were young and often distracted by their play. Some nights, despite 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿's warnings, they would forget their slippers outside. It became a common occurrence. 𝗬𝐚𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐠𝐞 would find them the next morning, soaked with morning dew or was missing altogether. One bright morning as she stepped out to start her daily chores, 𝗬𝐚𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐠𝐞 noticed that 2 pairs of slippers were lying outside. Her heart sank, knowing it was yet another instance of her children disregarding her instructions. "Oh, not again," she exclaimed, shaking her head in frustration. When the children came down for breakfast, 𝗬𝐚𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐠𝐞 called them over, her tone firm. "Come here, all of you," she said, arms crossed. The children shuffled together, knowing they were about to get a scolding. "Did I not tell you to bring your slippers inside every night?" 𝗬𝐚𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐠𝐞 asked, looking each child in the eye. "What if someone takes them, or the goats ruin them? You need to start listening to me." Her eldest son, trying to defend himself, piped up, "But Mama, we were just playing. We forgot." 𝗬𝐚𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐠𝐞 sighed, her frustration bubbling over. "Playing is not an excuse. I have warned you countless times, and it's important that you listen to me. I don't want to keep having this conversation. You are old enough to remember your things." The children looked down at their feet, feeling guilty. "We are sorry, Mama," they mumbled in unison, knowing they had let her down. 𝗬𝐚𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐠𝐞 softened slightly, recognizing the sincerity in their voices. "I know you're just kids, but I need you to try harder. If you forget your slippers again, there will be consequences. Now, go get ready for the day and remember to keep your things safe." 𝗬𝐵 sat in a quiet corner of her favorite restaurant, a bottle of drink in her hands, feeling the weight of her worries settle heavy on her shoulders. She was meeting her close friend, 𝗬𝐵, who had always been a supportive listener. As they chatted about their lives, 𝗬𝐵 couldn't help but pour out her feelings of frustration and despair. "I am almost 40, 𝗬𝐵 said, her voice tinged with sadness. "I thought by now I would have children of my own. I see 𝗬𝐚𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐠𝐞 with 5 kids, and it just hurts. What's wrong with me?" 𝗬𝐵, who was also 40 and in a similar situation, nodded empathetically. "I understand how you feel, 𝗬𝐵. I've been to that place too, but you shouldn't lose hope. There are always ways to address this." "What do you mean?" 𝗬𝐵 asked, her voice skeptical. 𝗬𝐵 leaned in closer, her voice low as if she were sharing a secret. "I have a native doctor that I have heard great things about. He helps many women in our community who struggle to conceive. He can find the source of your barrenness and give you a powerful charm to help with it. It's worked for others, it could work for you too." 𝗬𝐵 raised an eyebrow, her interest piqued. "A native doctor? Do you really think that could help? I have tried so many doctors and treatments, and nothing has worked so far. I know it sounds unconventional, but sometimes we need to explore other options." The native doctor is very respected, and many women have come back with good news after visiting him. "If you're open to it, I can go with you," 𝗬𝐵 offered. 𝗬𝐵 considered this for a moment. The idea felt strange, but she was desperate for a solution. After years of feeling broken and alone, she was willing to try anything that might help her become a mother. "All right," she said, a mix of hope and anxiety bubbling within her. "Let's go. Where can we find him?" 𝗬𝐵 smiled, sensing 𝗬𝐵's willingness to embrace the idea. "Let's plan for this weekend. I'll arrange everything. You'll see, it might be just what you need." The weekend arrived, and 𝗬𝐵 felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety as she and 𝗬𝐵 made their way to the native doctor's shrine. The air was thick with anticipation as they approached the round structure surrounded by tall trees. 𝗬𝐵's heart raced as they entered. The dim light from the oil lamps cast shadows on the walls adorned with various charms and symbols. The native doctor, an elderly man with deep-set eyes and a wise demeanor, welcomed them with a nod. After exchanging pleasantries, he motioned for 𝗬𝐵 to sit before him. She felt a sense of reverence in his presence, but also a gnawing apprehension about what he might reveal. "Tell me why you are here," he said, his voice calm yet commanding. 𝐿 took a deep breath and shared her story, her longing for children, her years of disappointment, and the jealousy she had felt toward 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿 and her family. The native doctor listened intently, his expression unreadable. After a long pause, he leaned closer. "Your barrenness," he said, "is not just a matter of medical condition. It stems from a powerful exchange." 𝐿's heart sank as she awaited his next words. "It is because of a former friend, 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿. She has taken your womb and exchanged it for her own. This is why you have no children of your own." His words hit 𝐿 like a blow, stirring a storm of emotions within her. "What do you mean?" 𝐿 stammered, trying to process his revelation. How could she do that? The native doctor continued, unfazed by her reaction. 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿's success in bearing children is a result of this exchange. To reclaim what is rightfully yours, you must act. I have a charm that will help you. He reached behind him and produced a small green bottle filled with a shimmering liquid. He handed it to 𝐿, his eyes fixed on her. "At midnight, pour the contents of this bottle on the slippers of 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿's children. When the charm touches them, they will fall ill and die, allowing your womb to open for a child. This is the way to restore the balance." 𝐿 felt her heart race as she stared at the bottle, her hand trembling. It was a heavy price to pay, not just in gold which she had already exchanged for the charm, but morally. "Is there no other way?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The native doctor shook his head. "This is the only path to reclaim what is yours. You must decide." Conflicted but desperate, 𝐿 took the bottle, feeling the weight of her choice pressing down on her. She had spent so long wishing for a child that the idea of taking such a drastic measure began to feel less foreign and more justifiable. The anger and jealousy she felt toward 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿 clouded her judgment, and a dark, cold resolve began to settle in her heart. The following night unfolded like any other in the compound. 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿's children, as usual, played outside, their laughter echoing in the cool evening breeze. They ran around, chasing each other and kicking their new ball, completely absorbed in their game. As darkness fell, the children, tired from their play, went inside, leaving their slippers scattered across the yard as they often did. 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿, exhausted from the day's tasks, forgot to check if her children had brought in their slippers. It was a small detail, but one that often slipped her mind on days when she was particularly busy. She tucked her children into bed, kissed them good night, and retired to her room, unaware of the looming danger. 𝐿, who had been watching from her window, waited patiently until the compound was silent. The weight of the green bottle she had received from the native doctor felt heavy in her hands. She had spent the entire day thinking about what she was about to do, the words of the native doctor echoing in her mind, "This is the only way." She kept telling herself this, though a part of her still hesitated. As the clock neared midnight, 𝗬 quietly stepped out of her house. The cool air wrapped around her as she moved carefully, making sure no one saw her. Her heart pounded in her chest, each step feeling heavier than the last. When she reached the scattered slippers of 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿's children, she paused, her hands trembling slightly as she unscrewed the cap of the bottle of charm. With a deep breath, she began pouring the green liquid all over the slippers, watching as it seeped into the fabric. The liquid glistened under the faint moonlight, leaving a strange, shimmering trail behind. As she did this, she whispered the incantations the native doctor had taught her, her voice low but firm. The words felt foreign on her tongue yet powerful, as though they carried the weight of something far beyond her control. 𝐿 hurried back inside her home, her breath shaky and her heart still racing. She shut the door behind her, leaning against it as if to shield herself from the gravity of what she had just done. As the night wore on, 𝐿 lay awake, her mind racing with thoughts of what might happen. Would the children truly fall ill? Would 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐿 sense what had been done? And would she finally get what she had longed for all those years, a child of her own? Only time would reveal the consequences of her actions, but the path she had chosen felt darker and more uncertain than ever before. The next morning, 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐠𝐞 woke up early as usual. Bright sunlight streamed through the curtains. She went about her routine, waking her children, preparing food, and getting ready for the day. Her children, full of energy, were their usual playful selves, laughing and shouting as they ate. There was no sign that anything unusual had occurred the night before. As the days turned into weeks, 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐠𝐞's household remained the same, lively and filled with the sound of her children running around, playing games, and making noise in the compound. Nothing seemed amiss. 𝐿, who had been anxiously watching from her window, grew more and more confused with each passing day. She had expected something, anything, to happen to 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐠𝐞 and her children after using the charm, but they were as healthy and noisy as ever. 𝐿's frustration began to build. The children's laughter, which once made her jealous, now filled her with a deep sense of failure. Each morning as they ran past her window, she would look out, hoping to see some sign that the native doctor's charm had worked, but every day was the same. The children were fine, and 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐠𝐞 seemed happier than ever. Despite her growing frustration, 𝐿 remained determined to follow through with the native doctor's instructions. Each night she continued pouring the contents of the green bottle onto 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐠𝐞's children's slippers, convinced that if she persisted, the charm would eventually work. But as days turned into weeks, her hope dwindled, leaving her with an emptiness that echoed within her. One day, as 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐠𝐞's children were preparing for playtime, they began to complain to their mother about a strange smell coming from their slippers. "Mama, our slippers smell weird," one of the children said, wrinkling his nose. "We've tried washing them, but the smell won't go away." 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐠𝐞 looked puzzled. She hadn't noticed anything unusual, but the concerned look on her son's face made her take a closer inspection. She picked up one of the slippers and took a deep sniff. Immediately, she recoiled at a strange, pungent odor that wafted from it. It was unlike anything she had encountered, a mixture of something sour and sickly sweet. "What in the world?" 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐠𝐞 muttered, her suspicions starting to rise. She glanced at her children, who were still cringing at the smell. "I will wash them again," she said, determined to get to the bottom of this. After several unsuccessful attempts to clean the slippers, 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐠𝐞 couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. As she pondered the source of the smell, a troubling thought crossed her mind: could 𝐿 be behind this? That night, 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐠𝐞 devised a plan. She would stay up late and keep an eye on 𝐿's house, waiting to see if her neighbor would come out to do something to their slippers again. As darkness fell, she settled into a spot where she had a clear view. She knew that whatever 𝐿 was doing needed to be stopped, and she was determined to catch her in the act. The quiet of the night set in, but the tension in the air was palpable as 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐠𝐞 braced herself for what she might discover. That night, 𝐿 crept out of her house with a small green bottle in hand. She felt a growing desperation with each step, convinced that this might be her last chance to make the charm work. 𝐿 moved swiftly toward the spot where 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐠𝐞's children had left their slippers, her mind focused on the task. She crouched down, unscrewing the cap of the bottle, preparing to pour the charm over the shoes once again. But as she leaned over, a bright flash of light blinded her momentarily. Startled, she jumped back, and the bottle nearly slipped from her hands. It was 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐠𝐞, standing a few feet away, her phone raised with the flashlight on. 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐠𝐞 had been watching 𝐿 closely, and now at the right moment, she snapped several pictures of her neighbor in the act. "What are you doing, 𝐿?" 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐠𝐞 shouted, her voice cutting through the quiet of the night. "What is this? What have you been doing to my children's slippers?" 𝐿 froze, her eyes wide with shock. 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐠𝐞 stormed over and grabbed her by the wrist, pulling her away from the slippers. "You are a witch, 𝐿!" 𝗔𝐚𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐠𝐞 screamed, waking everyone in the compound. "You have been trying to curse my family because you are jealous. You can't stand that I have children and you don't, so you have been trying to harm them. Neighbors emerged from their homes, a curious crowd gathering around. They murmured in agreement, their judgment clear. 𝐿 stood there, trapped in a whirlwind of accusation and disbelief, her mind racing. She had wanted a child so badly, but now everything had spiraled out of control. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe and check out the next one.